Welcome, everybody out there in podcast land. We are back once again with another episode of Different Strings, your favorite guitar adjacent podcast. I, as always, am your host, along with my good friend Andy. Say hello to everybody.
Hello,
Andy.
everyone.
Fantastic. You nail that every single week with no rehearsals. Our topic this week is movies about music and musicians that are actually worth watching. But I'm not talking about musicals, though. If you want to watch West Side Story or Little Shop of Horrors, you go right ahead and you love them. I use those two examples on purpose because I love both of those shows. I haven't not seen the newer version of West Side Story, but if there's no snapping in it, I don't want to see it. You have to have snap gang dancing or it's not worth it. But before we get there, we got two things to do. First, Andy's going to tell us where everybody can find us on the web. And second, holy shit, we got a question from a listener.
What?
Seriously.
Wait, hold on. Today it's 6:41 on January 24th. Mark the date and time. A question from a listener.
Well, and they might have found us in email, which they can find where?
Different Strings Podcast .gov. No. .com. Right. .com. Sorry. I apologize. Not .edu.
No. .com.
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 Yeah, dude, we got a question from a listener this week. And
do you want to read it or do you want me to read it?
I'm going to read it because I want you to react to it.
Okay. I'm reacting.
Yeah, I read, you react. This is how this goes. And
technically for a reaction, shouldn't we have a video of you reading the letter in the upper right corner?
Oh yeah, we have to do a reaction video. And we're going to call it Wes reacts to douchey question. No. Actually, the question's good. It's
the reason for it is
the douchey. Reason for the question is there's douches. And stop me if you've heard this one before.
Okay.
This one comes from Bruce. And Bruce, thank you for listening and for your question. So Bruce asks, and I am paraphrasing. What are your feelings on people purchasing guitars knowing that they are going to swap out the components to make them sound different when there are already guitars out there that can achieve those tones already? For example, people who buy Strat style guitars and swap out the pickups for single coil sized humbuckers to achieve grittier tones. Now, for context,
very important.
Bruce says, I weigh 128 pounds and I much prefer Strat style guitars because they are lightweight and more ergonomic for me. Same, dude. I'm constantly told to buy Les Pauls or similar, had something in my throat, or similar guitars because they are more equipped out of the box for heavier tones. Some Strats do come preloaded with humbuckers, but they come with a heftier price tag. Sometimes they do, Bruce. I'm perfectly fine getting a 2000s made in Mexico Strat and modifying it to fit the style I want to play. If you were in my position, how would you respond to people who tell me what I should play? Also love the show.
Oh, thank you, Bruce.
Yeah.
We love the show too. And we love you for sending in the question. But before I get to the real answer, I gotta bust Bruce's bones on one thing.
Mm-hmm.
We got to eliminate the use of the prefix pre when it's extraneous. Strats don't come preloaded with humbuckers. They come loaded with humbuckers. And that's just the editor in me, Bruce, and it's not personal, but you can help, right? There's no such thing as preheating an oven. You heat the oven to a given temperature and then you use it. And anyways, now let's actually answer Bruce's question so he doesn't think I'm a dick. Although if he listens to the show, he kind of knows. First and foremost, I will say, buy the guitar you want to play and put the pickups in it that you want.
Ding, 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 ding.
And anybody who tells you that's not acceptable is not somebody you need to be associating with. You don't need that kind of negativity in your life.
Nope.
Right. I totally get it, man. A used made in Mexico Strat that's 20 years old is going to be about $500, maybe $600. If it's an anniversary, like a 60th anniversary, it might be 7 or 8. Right. But a run of the mill Mexican Strat from the early 2000s, they're, first of all, they're good guitars.
Yep.
Right. I personally think they need a little bit of fretwork typically, but that's just me. The electronics are not bad, but they can certainly benefit from a pickup swap, especially if you're putting really quality pickups in there. And I get it, right? Because I bought a Telecaster, a really nice Telecaster, knowing I wasn't going to like the pickups. And I tried 2 different sets of pickups before I found the ones that I really liked. And I left those in there. And it does still sound fairly telly, but it sounds the way I think a telly should sound. So now I'm a big dude. I weigh much more than 128 pounds. And I don't like Les Pauls either.
No, I'm saying double that, and I don't like Les Pauls. I mean, look, just
I could say like an Epiphone SG, maybe, if you really, 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 really had to have a guitar with humbuckers that look like humbuckers. But you don't want a heavy guitar, get an SG. But I love a Strat with a hum or a hum single. And that's my favorite guitar to go out playing.
Bruce is dead on. They are lightweight and more ergonomic for him. And also you and I, arguably,
absolutely,
both like them. And, Bruce, you're doing, I believe my response to Bruce was, here's the short version. We do what you do. This is for 30 years, this is what I did. I bought fairly inexpensive guitars and put better pickups in them. That's it. When I could have, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. And who has the time who's telling you, who are the gatekeepers telling
and that's what they are,
and do this?
Yeah.
Who says get a Les Paul? Because why? Well, you know what? That is people who bought Les Pauls trying to validate their purchases through you, right?
You're gonna tell Eric Clapton, nice, but go get a Les Paul. Right? You're gonna tell Nuno Betancourt. You're gonna tell Nuno Betancourt, hey, that was really cool, man. But if you played a Les Paul, it would sound so much better. Or Eddie Van Halen. Well, you can't tell Eddie anything anymore, but you know what I mean.
Too soon. And incidentally, I would call BS on anyone who tells me that in a live or recording situation with all the effects and distortion and all the other ambient noises that you can tell the difference between a Strat with a humbucker and a Les Paul. I'm sorry, you can't. If isolated in an isolated environment, maybe 6 out of 10 people, 4 out of 10 people have the ear to tell the difference.
But in the mix,
not in the mix, not live. And so, Bruce, you do you, my friend.
Yeah. And that was going to be the end of my answer was, he says, how would you respond to people who tell me what I should play? How I would respond to it is probably different how I would advise other people to respond to it.
Hey, let's practice that scenario. Hey, Wes, that Strat you're playing with the humbucker, you shouldn't do that. What you should do is get a Les Paul.
Anyways, we're going to start the next song.
trying to keep it family.
Yeah. I mean, so how do you respond? Thank them for their opinion, change the subject, and move on.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly anybody who says, oh, you should try this guitar, maybe they like it, maybe they're excited about it, maybe they think you would like it, But the fact is, Bruce, you know you don't like Les Pauls, so don't play them. And if somebody tells you to get one, you can say, hey, you know, I really don't care for Les Pauls for a lot of reasons. I really prefer my Strats.
Hmm.
And, you know, it might be an opportunity for you to convince them to get a Strat.
Yeah, because you know what, Bruce? Here's an interesting thing. Wes knows this. You know what Les Paul, what Les Paul there's lets you get a bridge humbucker sound, a neck single coil sound, and a middle single coil sound. Which Les Paul does that?
Uh, None.
Hmm. Yeah. So, you know, Wes, correct me if I'm wrong. One of your favorite configurations is bridge humbucker single coil neck pickup.
Yeah,
Yeah, Strats do
absolutely.
that really well.
Yeah,
You know what doesn't do that well? A
Les
Les
Paul.
Paul, a stock Les Paul. So, you know, Bruce,
Yeah,
you
best case, you split the neck pickup and then you've got a humbucker and a split neck pickup, which doesn't sound the same.
not the same.
It can sound good if that's the
Mhm.
sound you're looking for,
Not the
but it
same.
doesn't sound the same as a bridge humbucker and a single coil neck.
Bruce, thanks for your question and for giving us an opportunity to yet again address that there are people willing to gatekeep pretty much anything. Imagine telling someone else what kind of guitar that person should play.
Yeah.
How does that affect you? I don't know. How does that affect? I don't understand who is telling you. I want to know the names and the address and maybe social security number of the people that are telling. Find them, put them on some sort of list. All right,
That's awesome. And thanks for the question. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. And
we do.
anybody else that wants us to answer your question, know that we're going to be probably a little bit snarky about it, especially if you use the word the pre anywhere. And two, keep them coming, right? Because even though we're going to joke, we're going to get to a real answer. And we want you to be happy with your playing and your instruments and your experience as a guitar player, and we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that happens.
Absolutely. And we're not sponsored by anyone, so we won't try to sell you anything.
Not even a Les Paul.
Not even especially a Les Paul. All right, Wes, you brought up this main topic, and I have to admit, I was intrigued. You know, because I did not enjoy Hello Dolly. I'm not a big fan of musicals.
Hello, is that Barbara Streisand?
It is.
Okay,
Okay. And I don't like West Side Story.
that's all right.
And I didn't like the Lego movie.
Was that a musical?
Yeah. And I don't like I I'm not a fan of musicals. And now you want to do an episode dedicated entirely to Broadway shows. I mean, I don't
No.
understand. Like, what's the no?
No, I want to talk about movies. I came up with a top 10 list of movies that I think all musicians should see. Now, I will
Oh,
admit that it is a little guitar heavy because I am a guitar player,
a little.
but there's a lot of different instruments in here, and even one that might surprise you. And I have seen all of these movies. I know you told me you haven't seen a lot of music movies, and
Well,
I'm talking about movies that are specifically about the music or the musicians,
yeah, so
not just movies like the Blues Brothers doesn't count. No, wait,
this
the
it's
Blues Brothers could count because it is about the musicians. We're
mhm.
putting the band back together.
Yeah.
I take that back. But let me tell you what doesn't count. The animated feature film Heavy Metal, which is
Ooh,
chock full of great music,
man, that takes me back.
but it's not about music or musicians, so it's not on the list.
Mm, okay.
All right.
So here's the
But I want
conversation Wes and I had. It lasted about 4 seconds. Wes, I'm going to be next to use. I'm going to be useless, next to useless for this episode because I don't watch musicals. No, Andrew, it's music. It's music, music
musicians.
movies. It's movies about music. Oh, okay. I might have seen a few of these.
Yeah, I'm
So,
sure you have.
so I've seen quite. Now that I see the list, I've actually seen many of these. And
Good.
that's completely forgot that I saw some of these. It's been for a while. It's been a really long time.
Yeah. And some of them are getting a little tough to find on streaming services, but you can do it. So, but I know that, like, I came up with a list of 10, which is actually 12 because there's some ties
Mm.
and some honorable mentions.
Mhm.
But you specifically mentioned a mute movie that has been done 3, if not 4 times, that I have never seen any version of. So I want you to talk about that movie first, because I really kicked myself for not seeing the most recent version in the theater.
Wait, which is that one?
The one with Bradley,
Oh,
what's his name, and Lady Gaga.
A Star is Born.
A Star is Born, exactly.
We gotta talk about this movie. All right.
Yeah.
So,
Now, so for people that haven't seen it, break down the basic plot.
all right.
No spoilers.
Ah,
Minor
right.
spoilers.
Oh,
You can do it without major spoilers.
okay. The movie is, it's really about the journey of a washed up has been rock star and his relationship with a younger ingenue, like a diamond in the rough. You know, he discovers her, wants to lift her up, and they fall in love, and it's really the story of that relationship. Him, this broken, washed up has been, and her with her star on the rise. And if you if you have even a tenth of a heart, you will cry your mother effing eyes out at the latest version of A Star is Born.
Yeah.
You will absolutely, you will be moved. I have the I I saw the Chris Christopherson Barbara Streisand version when I was a kid. Made no sense.
Right.
I was a youngling. I saw this newer version and it just
Niagara Falls.
gut wrenching. So for now, I'll back off the story and say the performances were incredible.
Yeah.
Bradley Cooper was astonishingly good. Lady Gaga, who I didn't realize had the acting thing, was also amazing. And it just the fact that they both did the vocals for the songs
Yeah.
also added just an element of realism. And there's something just so incredible about their stage presence and their like the chemistry between them. It's just amazing. I hope everyone just goes to see this movie, but just be prepared to bawl your eyes out. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
You've no soul. If you don't cry at that movie, you have no soul. That's all I'm saying.
I've seen a bunch of interviews with. So first of all, I am fascinated by Lady Gaga, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for her as a
Mhm.
musician. She is a stellar piano player. She is an amazing songwriter, and that voice could wreck societies. It's so good.
Yeah,
Uh,
and she really got like pigeonholed as a pop star, but when you tear her down to who she really is, you start seeing the Freddie Mercury. That's all
yeah,
I'm saying. Like
yeah,
that's all I'm saying. If you listen to some of her stuff, if you really listen to it, she's definitely like got the Freddie Mercury thing. That piano, like you said, piano, the vocals, like she is just powerful as hell. And
yeah,
so when I saw this movie, I liked her music before, but for what it is. It's not certainly Bach or Beethoven, but it's good. Oh, very overproduced, but that's what it's meant to be. But watching her perform and listening to the songs, it's crazy. It's
yeah.
crazy how good it is.
And she's super complimentary about Cooper's singing ability, and very upfront with basically saying that she made him do his own singing so that it would be as realistic as possible.
And by the way, for those who are new to the internet, go ahead and look up the clip of Lady Gaga singing in front of Metallica. Just do that.
Yeah.
Just do
You
that.
won't be sorry. You won't be
Just do
sorry.
that. Yeah. So, she's a one-trick pony, right? Okay. Anyway, good movie. Please go see it.
Yes. And now we'll get on to my list, my top 10 movies for musicians. Now, do you want me to go 10 to 1 or 1 to 10?
Ooh, yeah. Let's go backwards.
Okay. So we're going to start at number 10 with a tie. And the tie is between La Bamba and the Buddy Holly story.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, because they're the same era. They died in the same plane crash.
Mm-hmm.
And they both kind of follow a similar arc, right? Mm-hmm. Disrespected or unrespected musician with lots of obstacles, perseveres, succeeds, makes his way through, and becomes the pop star he always wanted to be. Right. Lou Diamond Phillips plays the lead in La Bamba.
Richie Valens,
and he's fantastic. He doesn't look anything like Richie Valens, I don't think, but he is a very good actor. And I think the Buddy Holly story was miscast by putting Gary Busey in the role of Buddy Holly, because all the pictures I've seen, Buddy Holly was like a little narrow dude, and Gary Busey is a lot of things, but he is not a little narrow dude. And even putting on the glasses didn't help. But he loves Buddy Holly, and it was so important to him to tell the story. And even though you can't forget that's Gary Busey, I did really enjoy the Buddy Holly story.
Sure.
So I put those movies together at number 10.
All right.
For number 9 is 1980's The Blues Brothers, starring...
Who does not know the Blues Brothers? Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi.
John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd. But much more importantly, a killer band full of real, honest to God R&B legends.
Yeah, man. Steve Cropper.
Topped off with Steve Cropper and Donald Duck Dunn, man.
Yep.
The guys, man, the ones who made Stax.
Right.
And then they got Matt Guitar Murphy, they got Mr. Wonderful, they got Blue Lou on the horns. It is, and then the singers they feature.
Yeah.
Right? James Brown as the preacher, and Aretha Franklin as the diner owner / wife of Matt Guitar Murphy. And she sings You Better Think, and it is amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing from the director because I have the DVD version and I listened to the commentary. Neither James Brown nor Aretha Franklin could nail the lip syncing, so they just let them sing it live. So when you watch the Blues Brothers, you are hearing Aretha Franklin's voice live in the scene.
That's
and
dope.
James Brown too. Great movie.
Yeah. 1980. Wow, that takes me back.
They make fun of Nazis, which is always a good time.
And nuns.
Well, yeah. Now, number 8 on my list is probably the one that's going to surprise you and everybody else. And it is a little film from 2015 called Straight Outta Compton. Right? Have you seen this? Have you seen this one?
No, there's a definite lack of guitar in that movie.
Yeah, there is no guitar, no guitar. It is about the rise and fall of one of the most important hip hop groups in the history of music, a little band called NWA. Now, NWA gave us Dr. Dre, Eazy-E, and Ice Cube.
So,
towering giants of hip hop is who they are.
So, not slackers in the rap world.
Yeah, not slackers at all. And one of my favorite things about the movie is that Ice Cube's son plays him as the younger version of him.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, dope.
yeah, which I think is absolutely phenomenal,
That
right?
is great.
And a lot of times, I know, especially me, because I am a middle-aged white guy. I don't think about the experience of Black musicians. And a rapper is a musician, right?
So,
They may not be playing an instrument, but they are creating songs. And if you are creating songs, that makes you a musician in my book.
mhm. No
Um,
argument for me. It's an art form, and at its
yeah,
core, it takes a skill. I'm sorry, like if anyone's saying that rap isn't music, I don't know. I can't really, I don't know. I don't understand the argument there.
yeah, it
It may
might not
not
be
be,
your music.
yeah, thank you. It may not be music that speaks to you or tells your story, but it's music nonetheless.
Yeah.
Now,
And
jazz is not music. That I will go to the grave. I will die with
jazz
that.
jazz is an ongoing microaggression. Uh
Sorry, that was an easy one. I just had to do that. All right,
yeah,
go
that's
ahead.
cool. But yeah, so Straight Outta Compton tells the story of the rise of NWA, their difficulties, their relationships, right? Because being in a band, you have a relationship with every other person in the band,
A marriage.
right? And when you got five guys from the streets who are trying to get something done, there's going to be clashes. There's a lot of foul language.
Hmm.
It's a really good movie. It's a really
Yeah,
good movie. Well worth
very gritty.
watching. Yeah. Uh, Number 7 is a much more recent movie called Sound of Metal.
Hmm.
Now, that sounds intriguing, doesn't it?
I
Sound
don't
of
know
Metal.
anything. I'm not sure I understand what that movie is.
Well, it is a movie about a drummer who loses his hearing, and he has to then figure out how to cope with his hearing as it's disappearing from him, and all of the things that go around that. And he explores a lot of medical interventions that all end up being too expensive and things like that. Um,
Well, that
but
sounds heart-wrenching.
it's a tough movie, right? But it introduces, I think, the importance of protecting your hearing if you're a musician, and especially if you're a drummer or you stand next to the drum kit to play your instrument.
Hmm.
It's it really is, because without your hearing, it's going to be real tough to be a musician. I'm not saying it's impossible, right? Because it's been done, Beethoven,
Hmm.
but it's a lot harder,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So, Sound of Metal, drummer loses his hearing. Good movie, fantastic acting, and it's full of nobodies. I mean, nobody you ever heard of. Um, so that's also kind of refreshing.
Okay.
I like movies that star a bunch of people that I don't know, because I find it easier to suspend my sense of disbelief.
Right.
When Al Pacino shows up as a cop in a movie, it's Al Pacino. You
Right.
know, I can't not see Al Pacino. So, number 6 is another more recent movie, and it is called Green Book. And that is a movie about a piano player.
Hmm.
Um, and the lead role is played by Marshala Ali, and I apologize if I mangled his first name. And his co-star is Viggo Mortensen, right? Do you know who that
Hmm.
you know who that is, right?
Yep.
All right. And basically the story follows these two guys. And Ali is the musician. He's the piano player, and he's
Hmm.
traveling all around on his little tour in various places across the United States, primarily in the South. And he's playing venues, clubs, speakeasies, honky tonk. Well, not honky tonks, but honky tonk like places. Um, and he's using something called the Green Book, which Black travelers in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s used to find safe places to stay, to eat, to gather, and live their lives.
Right.
Places where they didn't have to worry about being snatched out of their motel room and lynched in the middle of the night.
I mean, the movie takes place when, basically, the 50s, 60s.
50s and 60s, yeah.
Okay. And if I did, first of all, this won Best Picture. So if you haven't seen it, by all means. Directed by a Farrelly, one of the Farrelly brothers, Peter
Yeah, Peter
Farrelly,
Farrelly.
which was a stunner. The performances in this movie are ridiculous. Viggo Mortensen gained, I think, 700 pounds. He's I think, if I recall correctly, he's an Italian American bouncer,
Yeah,
and he
basically.
looks like a bouncer. And of course, he's also, he's playing a white guy in the 50s and 60s, so naturally not the most tolerant, but
Exactly.
the movie follows his relationship with the piano player, Dr. Don Shirley, and it is, I mean, it's just, first of all, it absolutely does an incredible job of portraying, the Southern racism in the
Yeah,
50s and 60s. But the relationship between these two gentlemen is portrayed really, I think it's based on a true story, and they actually remain friends forever. Like they stayed friends until well into like the 2000s.
I'm really glad
Um,
to hear that.
yeah, but it's an incredible story, their journey through the South and just all the trials and tribulations. And it's amazing. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so good.
Yeah.
um and a piano player, right? So now we've got two guitar players, Richie Valens, Buddy Holly, two singers, the Blues Brothers, five rap stars straight out of Compton, a drummer, Sound of Metal, and a piano player, Green Book. We are going to go back to drummers for 2014's Whiplash.
Whiplash.
Right?
I know
Which
nothing of this movie.
oh dude, it's I almost hesitate to call Whiplash a drama because I want to call it a psychological thriller. So you've got Miles Teller, who is a mild-mannered jazz drummer student who wants to study with the character played by J.K. Simmons in what is literally his most intense role ever. He
Okay.
is a monster. And I don't mean that like in a good way. Like he's not a monster like Godzilla. He's a monster like Mothra. He's a bad monster. Bad, bad monster. He's a terrible, terrible person
He plays
to
his
the point.
instructor, his drum
Yeah,
instructor.
he's the jazz. He leads the jazz band
Okay.
and is the instructor. He throws a cymbal at Miles Teller's head, the character, right? Um, check out the clips on the YouTube of this, and you'll see, right?
Okay.
But it shines a light on the world of competitive jazz band, which is a thing, first of all, and is a very psychologically disturbing world to live in, if you
Wow.
ask me.
Okay. I didn't know that. I guess I'll have to go check this one out.
Yeah, I mean, and it's the drumming scenes are amazing, and believe it or not, it started out as a short film, also starring J.K. Simmons,
Hmm.
and J.K. Simmons is by training a conductor.
What?
Yeah,
Stop it. That's
yeah,
dope.
yeah. He has a legit college degree in conducting and composition.
I never would have guessed that. That's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah. He was in your favorite musical, Guys and Dolls.
My favorite musical.
I'm looking for his actual degree. He's also been in the Peter Parker Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, I love
Um,
him in that. And also he plays Dr. Skoda on one of my favorite TV shows.
yeah, he's Skoda on Law and Order,
Yeah,
right?
love him.
My favorite J.K. Simmons role is actually in a video game called Portal 2.
Oh, I knew you liked Portal.
Oh, I love Portal, but I love Portal 2 because J.K. Simmons plays Cave Johnson in the most ridiculous role of his career, and he is brilliant and perfect in it. Right? When life gives you lemons, throw the lemons back, set them on fire, and throw them back. Ask for lemon supervisor. Don't take the lemons. It's a great role, and Whiplash is a moving and disturbing movie about the nature of being a musician and the intensity and commitment and drive it takes to perform at a high level and be part of a competitive jazz band.
Neat.
Next up is kind of a cheesy movie. We've got Mark Wahlberg and Jennifer Aniston. And the movie is called Rockstar. Came out in 2001. Rockstar.
The real story of Tim Ripper
Owens. Right? Yeah. So the basic plot is a very famous metal band is, you know, in the midst of doing their thing, and the singer walks out. Now he happens in the movie, we find out much later, he's having a sexual identity crisis, and he can't be in the band anymore. He can't be the person that everybody wants him to be. So the band ends up with a guy who sounds just like him. Mark Wahlberg's character. Now, Mark Wahlberg I will say he's a pretty good actor. He did not do the singing in this movie.
No, he did not.
No, he did not. So, and the band is very Judas Priest-like. One of my favorite guitar players, Zach Wilde, plays in the band. I believe Jason Bonham also plays in the band.
Jeff Pilson,
the bass player from
Dokken. And current Foreigner bass player, I believe. He's doing the Foreigner thing.
Yeah. And so it's a good movie, and it's a little bit lighter than the other ones, right? It doesn't quite have the same emotional impact, but you really do feel what's going on as Mark's character goes through the throes of discovering what it feels like to be a rock star, and to watch his relationships grow, morph, crumble, shift, change. And at the end, you know, if you really feel like he's come into his own. So in that regard, it's a little bit of a coming of age kind of thing. But, you know, mixed reviews. It didn't make a lot of money. It lost a ton of money. It lost like $30 million or something like that.
Ugh.
You know, basically ensuring there would be no sequel.
Rockstar 2, the Rockstarning.
And all right. So before we get into numbers 1, 2, and 3, I'm going to give you my honorable mentions. Good movies about music or musicians that did not quite make the list. They didn't make the top 10. Pink Floyd's The Wall, which is about a musician, Pink, absolutely losing his mind.
The Roger Waters story.
The Roger Waters story, yeah, exactly. And I can tell that you're from the Philly because you say Roger Waters. We got a Michael J. Fox twofer in the honorable mentions. We've got Back to the Future from 1985 and Light of Day from 1987.
Light of Day, taking me.
Exactly, which also starred Joan Jett as a deadbeat, drug-addicted, alcoholic mother, which is why Michael J. Fox was the responsible one in their band. And that the title song, Light of Day, pretty good song. It's a good rock and roll movie that shows some of the hazards of the rock and roll lifestyle. Another honorable mention is an animated movie called Coco, which is I think it's even a Disney. It might be a Pixar, which is also Disney. I forget who made it.
Well, so
Um,
it's funny that that's on here, and I'm going to interrupt and say, if it's not, I didn't see Coco, but if we're talking about Pixar films about music, I got
you
to
saw
put Soul up
the other
here.
one. Yeah,
Yeah, I got to put Soul up here.
yeah.
That
Good
was
movie.
surprisingly, I mean, first of all, Jamie Foxx, who I love, Tina
Great
Fey,
actor.
who I love,
Yeah.
Graham
And
Norton, who I
Jamie
love.
Foxx also should have been in my honorable mentions for his performance in Ray.
Oh my
The the
God.
the oh man, what a
Yes.
great performance.
Yes. Absolutely.
And
So, yeah,
yeah,
I thought Soul was cute and also touching. And as a musician, it also hit home in a lot of ways. Um, but I thought interestingly, the music in that movie by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross.
yeah, that's something.
So that is crazy. Not a movie you would expect to see, you know, them associated with, because this is basically about soul and jazz and R&B. But
Yeah,
yeah, music by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. But yeah,
that's really
dude,
cool.
Ray absolutely needs to be on this list now that we
Yeah,
mention it.
yeah. Shame on me for not including it. The life story of Ray Charles.
Mm,
And Jamie
killer.
Foxx is a monster musician, man. He is a fantastic piano player and a
Yeah.
really good singer,
Yep.
and a funny comedian too. He's like a multi threat.
Yeah.
And I know he's had some health issues in the not too distant past. So I hope that he's doing better
Get
and
better, Jamie.
is going to stay with us for a long time.
Yeah.
I got two more twofers in the honorable mentions. We got a Beatles twofer from 64 and 65. We got A Hard Day's Night and Help. And if you haven't seen Help, it is one of the hands down funniest movies I have ever seen about music and musicians.
Yeah.
And the music of the Beatles is shot through. Now, A Hard Day's Night is much more about the boys being musicians and being
Mhm.
on tour and being tired and chased and just the craziness of Beatlemania. Whereas Help is kind of using the music, the recording studio, the tour, the traveling as a backdrop.
I feel like these two movies are telling us something. Are the Beatles trying to send us a hidden message between A Hard
They
Day's
might have
Night and
been
Help in the 60s? Also,
50
Yellow
years ago.
Submarine.
Yeah, I don't like that one as much.
But the little kid in me liked it.
Yeah, it was cute. And the last part of the honorable mentions is it's also a twofer, but it's a movie and the parody of the movie. And the movie is Walk the Line, the life story of the man in black, the one, the only Johnny Cash. And its parody, which is called Walk Hard, colon, the Dewey Cox story. And you really have to see both movies. Watch Walk the Line and watch Reese Witherspoon and Joaquin Phoenix take these very serious takes on the life and music of Johnny Cash, and then watch the nut jobs, the absolute moronic humor that is the core of Walk Hard.
Mhm.
And it is such a brilliant send up of Walk the Line and the whole concept of the super dramatic musician biopic,
Yeah.
you know. It's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
I like to watch Walk Hard and Ricky Bobby back to back because they're just so ridiculous.
Yeah. Walk the
Okay.
Line was a great movie. I don't know if I can't remember if it or whether it won Oscars or whatever, but I remember really just I could not believe the performances. And also Reese and Joaquin also did their own singing for that movie.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to go back to the list. We're at number 3 with Purple Rain.
Oh, Get Out.
Get Out.
Absolutely, absolutely just iconic movie, album, artist.
Yeah.
It defined the 80s, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if you haven't seen it, I'm going to spoil it a little bit, because the to me the most touching thing is, like, we've all heard the stories of Prince running his bands with an iron fist
Mm.
and not really broaching or even being welcome to a lot of input from the people in the band.
Mm-hmm.
And one part of the storyline is his band, right? This is Prince in the Revolution era. Somebody in the band wants to play a song that they wrote because they're in the band too. And at the end, Prince caves in the movie and they play the song, and it's beautiful. It is Purple Rain. It's that song.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazingly well done. And Prince is a monster guitar player, first and foremost. And also, one of my favorite parts of the movie is the appearances of The Time. Morris Day and The
Yeah,
Time,
Morris Day in the
great,
Time.
great band that Prince propped up with his music and production.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
And started the careers of Wendy Melvoin and Lisa Coleman. They
Yeah,
worked together for many years after.
yes, they did.
It was such a great movie. And yeah, like you said, the talent in that movie is nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we're on to number 2. This is another tie. It's a twofer. And
This is a
why
threefer.
reefer?
It's threefer.
No, it's just 2.
Oh, okay.
We've got This Is Spinal Tap from 1984, coupled with A Mighty Wind from 2003. And the reason it's a twofer is because it focuses, it's the same 3 actors. It's Michael Keane,
Mm-hmm.
Michael McKean, I'm sorry, Christopher Guest, and Harry Shearer, who are well known as comedic actors, but are also each of them stellar musicians.
Yeah, that's right.
Christopher Guest is a monster guitar player. He plays guitar, he plays mandolin, he plays a bunch of different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Michael McKean is a really good guitar player. He got his start playing guitar on television in a show you might have heard of called Laverne and Shirley.
Lenny and the Squigtones.
Lenny and the Squigtones. He was the Squigtones.
He was the Squigtones. Tracy and I were literally just recently watching videos from Lenny and the Squigtones. The lyrics are still to this day hilarious, man.
Hilarious. The Christmas program, the Christmas show they did,
mm-hmm.
Comedy Gold.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know, This Is Spinal Tap is the rock and roll movie for bands.
Mm-hmm.
It's an aging British heavy metal band on what is likely to be their last tour of the United States, and anything and everything that can go wrong does go wrong to hilarious ends.
And it's filmed like a mockumentary. It's like a documentary by Rob Reiner.
Yeah, and this whole genre of rockumentaries was kicked off by This Is Spinal Tap.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first one, and they were kind of mocking that live feeling in
mm-hmm.
the room documentary style, and then it turned into a real show. Like, if you've seen Behind the Music, that comes from Spinal Tap.
Yeah, and kids, if you're new to the internet, if you've heard the phrase "this goes to 11," it comes from this movie.
Yeah,
and the whole bit is Christopher Guest has a new Marshall. And he's showing the documentary filmer, the director, Rob Reiner, he's showing him his new amp. And he's like, it's so loud, I had them make it so that it doesn't just go to 10, it goes to 11. The amp has an 11 on the gain knob or the volume knob. And he keeps telling him it's so good because and Rob goes, why didn't you just make 10 louder?
and his answer is,
but
well, this one goes to 11.
But this one goes to 11.
Right. And
why didn't they just make 10 louder? It's such a great question. Right.
20 years later, the same crew of people did a movie called A Mighty Wind, which does for the folk scene of the 60s, what
Yep.
Spinal Tap does for the heavy metal scene of the
Right.
80s.
Right.
And in between, those people did a lot of other highly improvised movies that are kind of this mock documentary
Best in
style.
Show may be one of
Best
my
in Show,
favorite movies of all
absolutely.
time, man.
That's the one. They did
Eugene
one,
Levy and
yeah. They did one about sports mascots. They did one about community theater.
hmm
But I
Wait,
think
yeah.
I think Best in Show is the best of all of those movies. But it's
Oh yeah,
definitely
Waiting for Guffman is the one you're thinking.
Waiting
The
for Guffman. That's the
yeah.
community theater one. Yeah, and they're hilarious. And Best in Show is just one of the best movies ever. That should
Yeah.
be something that everybody sees. And A Mighty
Yeah.
Wind is also really good, but it's not quite that good.
Yeah.
But it's worth watching. Now, number one on the list, top 10 best movies for musicians, is a guitar player movie. It is about a guitar player, and that guitar player is named Eugene, and he's played by Ralph Macchio, and the movie is Crossroads.
Bing.
Now, if you go looking for this movie, make sure you get the one with Ralph Macchio from 1986, not the one with Britney Spears in it, right? And
Yeah.
this has the best guitar scenes of any movie I've ever seen.
hmm
Right. Basically, the basic storyline is Ralph Macchio is studying classical guitar, but he loves the blues. And he also, while he's in school, he works in a retirement home. And there's an old black guy there who always talks about being a blues musician, harmonica player. And basically, Eugene breaks him out of the old folks' home because the guy wants to go back to where he made his deal with the devil to get his soul back.
Hmm.
So along the way, Eugene picks up a Telecaster, and I think it's a Pig Nose, a battery powered amp.
Pig nose. Yep.
And he starts learning the blues. Right, he wants the old guy to teach him how to play the blues. And they run into Jamie Gertz, who is a great actor. And she's in the movie for a little while. But the reason to watch the movie, you have to watch the whole movie to get the last 15 minutes of it, right?
Right.
Because they go to the crossroads where Willie sold his soul to the devil. The devil shows up. They challenge the devil to give Willie his soul back. And the way to get it back is Eugene has to go up against the devil's guitar player.
hmm
And the devil's guitar player is Steve Vai. And
Yes, he is.
he can't be but 25 years old. I mean, he looks gaunt and greasy, and he's playing a super strat, probably a Charvel, or at least out of Charvel parts. And they cut heads is what they call it in the movie. And it is amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So Steve Vai played his parts, and then if you're curious, you probably know who played, Eugene's parts, right? That was none other than Ry Cooder.
Ry Cooder, yeah, absolutely. Ry Cooder played I think he played all the slide guitar in the movie, and he also gave Ralph Macchio guitar lessons.
Yeah.
And he said in interviews that Ralph got to be a pretty decent guitar player, although you can tell he's not playing the guitar in that last scene.
In the
He
last
does
scene,
play in some of the other scenes on his butterscotch Telecaster. But it's a great, it's a coming of age, spiritual redemption, giving the devil his due. I mean, it's not a surprise anymore that they beat Steve Vai. And it's the piece that Eugene uses to beat the devil's guitarist is a piece of classical music. It's a
right? Which so it
Paganini.
goes back to his roots.
Yeah. So he wins by being true to himself and going back to his roots. And it's phenomenal. And the interplay between Steve Vai and Ry Cooder, where you've got Steve Vai playing Steve Vai, and Ry Cooder playing Steve Vai with a slide.
It was wicked.
Oh, it's just an amazing movie. And you can find that cutting head scene all over YouTube. It's worth watching, but you got to watch the whole movie. Otherwise, it doesn't have any context.
Right. It's a little, yeah.
So
Very
that's,
cool movie. And also there was Arlen Roth, I think, did some music for that movie.
yeah, Arlen Roth
There's
did some music for it.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it's definitely some decent guitar playing, but you have to, it's a movie you literally have to watch just to get to the end.
Yeah, you really do. And is it the best movie? No, but it's my favorite guitar player movie ever.
And if you're familiar with the myth of Robert Johnson, who was just one of the, he was, I think, maybe the first or the youngest, or he was definitely like the guy you hear about when you talk about Delta blues. He
Yeah.
was so, his playing was so haunting. And it sometimes, because he was playing with a slide and he played, they would say it would sound like he's playing rhythm and blues at the same, rhythm and lead at the same time. And you know, the myth was that he sold his soul to the devil to get that talent, and it just, that myth grew and grew and grew. And then I love that this movie comes out of that, that expands on that story a little bit, and it's
Yeah.
just, it's neat.
Yeah. So that's the list. And this episode is actually not going to be as long as the normal ones because I only have one more thing to add and I'm just going to fire them off. And because there's a bunch of really good documentaries out there about music and musicians.
Hmm.
And I think everybody should check these out because they're really, really worth watching. Top of that list is The Wrecking Crew, which is about the ace studio musicians in LA in the 1960s and 70s.
Hmm.
These people that made hundreds, if not thousands, of hit records. And they worked for the Beatles, they worked for everybody, and they're just amazing, amazing musicians. Buena Vista Social Club, which is about Cuban musicians. And when it came out in 1999, there still was no contact between the countries. So this was a big deal. The 3 or 4 years ago, doc called ZZ Top, that little old band from Texas, came out. Great, really well done telling of the story of ZZ Top. And of course, Dusty has passed away since that movie came out. So it's a little more poignant. There's another one called Turn It Up! And that's all about the electric guitar. I believe Kevin Bacon narrates that one. He is himself a guitar player. And then there's 3 documentaries about not famous musicians that I think everybody, especially everybody who's not a rock star, needs to watch. One is called Sidemen, Long Road to Glory, and that is about sidemen. There's a similar one that actually came out the same year called Hired Gun, which is also about studio musicians, but more on the metal side. I forget the dude's name, but the guitar player who went on to be in Five Finger Death Punch is one of the central voices in that movie, Hired Gun. And then, of course, my favorite out of this style of documentary is one called 20 Feet from Stardom, which is about the female backup singers that made all these rock bands sound amazing, like the Rolling Stones.
And never got any credit.
That never got any credit. And the lady who sang on one of the Rolling Stones' biggest hits tells the story of the session in which she sang, and they calling her up in the middle of the night kind of thing. And she just nailed that. Then, of course, you've got The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, The Metal Years, which is notorious amongst metalheads. Metallica, Some Kind of Monster, in which you watch Metallica have a nervous breakdown. And by Metallica, I really mean James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich,
Right. The two
coming to terms with how terribly they treated Jason Newsted while he was in the band, and trying to get themselves back on track. It's I gotta be honest with you, I'd never looked at them the same after I saw that, because I know being in a band is tough, but the way they treated Jason is just inexcusable.
I would agree.
I understand why they did it, they never processed the death of Cliff, and that led to taking it out on the new guy who was Cliff's replacement. But it was still inexcusable, and I've never looked at them the same way.
Yeah.
Kind of similar to The Wrecking Crew is another doc called Muscle Shoals, which is about another group of studio musicians, only these guys lived in the South. And then the last one I want to mention is a doc called The Carter, which is about Lil Wayne, a rapper. And his real name is Carter. Right. So he has an album called The Carter, but his name is I had to look it up, Dwayne Michael Carter Jr. But we call him Lil Wayne. And that's a fantastic, it's a great look into the rise of a star that you and I might not otherwise come into contact with. Just a fantastic what's the word? Documentary. Yes, documentary. That's the word I was looking for.
That is indeed.
And that's the whole list. That's the end of it. I know it seems weird not having a 2-hour episode, but do yourselves all a favor and dig these films up on your streaming service of choice. A lot of them can be rented or bought for not very much money, and they're all well worth watching.
Yeah.
So,
like Wes said, we are not recommending that you pirate them.
Yes.
We are not recommending that you download a VPN and find them on the internet.
Yes, absolutely. So let's say goodbye.
Well, before we say goodbye, we should probably tell people where to find us, which is differentstringspodcast.gov. Please, while you're there, donate to our political action committee. No, no, differentstringspodcast.com. Please and thank you. And what's coming up next, Wes? What are we doing after this?
After this, we got another Music That Matters, and should be an interesting one because you got to choose the album.
And
you pick weird stuff, man.
Garbage taste in music. All right, man. Well, I'll tune in for that, folks.
Yeah, and we'll see you out there on the internet, man. Everybody take it easy.
Peace.